As we started up the driveway, I looked and I saw black smoke coming out of the eaves the length of the building, and I realized that we had a major fire.
They had been bringing out bodies. They all looked like they were sleeping.
He said there's a lot of bodies, and I hope your loved ones are there.
The Beverly Hills Supper Club. It was called the showplace of the nation. It was big. Each night, it could serve thousands of patrons with Hollywood-style entertainment, a fine meal, and quality mixed drinks. It was equipped to handle many weddings, receptions, and meetings. It was a place only miles from Cincinnati, where patrons could escape the problems of the city. And so it was, on the night of May 28, 1977, Memorial Day weekend, when something went horribly wrong.
Attention Bellevue Firemen, report to your station. Attention Bellevue Firemen, report to your station. KTR 653. Order fire, Beverly Hills.
From the newsroom, this is Eyewitness 12 with Bill Crafton, exclusive AccuWeather, and sports with Fred Wymore.
Our major story this evening, maybe the major story we've had in Cincinnati for a long time, the story of death and Holocaust at Beverly Hills Supper Club south of Newport in northern Kentucky. A fire which began tonight or just shortly after 8:30 this evening. There you see a live shot from the scene from our Edge report. That fire is still blazing.
I got to the back garden area where they did the weddings. 35 people laying on the grass, asleep. No indication that they'd been killed in a fire. And that's when we really knew we were in for it.
Chief Dick Riesenberg was one of the youngest fire chiefs in the Commonwealth. He went back to the site of the Beverly Hills Supper Club on November 1st of 2019. Joining him was former Cincinnati TV news anchor Nick Clooney, the first time they had met there in 43 years.
Tell me something. How do you feel about being up here?
Well, this is about my 40th time.
Okay.
And every time I come up, I get emotional and a little scary.
Yeah.
And there's enough of us here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us here, I can lean on. But I do see and hear ghosts.
I don't doubt that at all. I've been up here only 3 times. Specifically, didn't want to be here. Didn't want to be here this time except for you. And I'm glad to be with you. But I want you to know you're one of my heroes, and that's the reason I'm standing here with you right now. And I want you to, that was a remarkable moment for all of us.
For all of us.
Any of us around here.
I want all Covington squads available to respond to this address.
When we got there, there's 165 people dead. Half of those people were already dead. And the others, they piled up at the exit door in the back. Couldn't get out. They pulled the bodies out and drug them all out. And there was 2 or 3 or 4 people still alive at the bottom. Remember I told you, more air, more oxygen at the bottom. And they were alive. Now, whether they stayed alive or not, I'm not sure, but they were alive when we took them out.
The place is fully engulfed. The firemen say there's just no question about it. There is no way to control it at this time. It's just all over the building.
They would put a handkerchief on the face. The body was, the people were dressed in the finest suits and gowns, and they're just laying on the hillside. And I counted maybe 99 bodies. What you would see if they weren't covered up was a perfectly normal looking person, but just a little bit of soot underneath their nose where they breathed in the fumes. and the smoke, and that's what killed them.
When the fellow came up on the stage, he said there was a fire, but everybody remained relatively calm. The comedians were on stage, they remained calm, and everybody left fairly orderly until the smoke started coming in the cabaret room where we were. We tried to go out the back exit, and it was too hot, the smoke came in, and my out this which you can see up on the hill, and just consider ourselves lucky, and thank God that we were able to get out alive.
You think this is the original tarmac down there that we're tripping over?
It could be. I'm not sure about that.
No, it's something. Isn't it?
We just passed a spot where the fire plug was on the east side.
You've got two of these?
Two of them up there.
Yeah, two.
The main one was down on US 27, and we tandem pumped. Took 3 trucks, one to receive the water, one in the middle, and one to receive it.
Look at this. Look at this. What do you think that is?
I'm going to say it's a food cart. I'm just guessing at that. I don't know what else it could be.
None of these were here the last time I visited.
Oh, you mean the tree? No. These were all weeds that grew up.
That's right. And
into trees.
but people have done memorials here, haven't they?
Yeah.
And they showed up, and this one said something about this is about where the zebra room was. You have a personal memory of the zebra room on that night, don't you?
Yes, I did.
What was going on?
They had some kind of a meeting in there, not a meeting, but a dinner, or a private party, and they got out. That's where the smoke came from. When I first got there, the smoke was in the ceilings. Hadn't come down yet.
This you think might even be in one of the railings?
Probably part of the railing at
the zebra
room. The zebra.
Lord. Just about right here, huh? Good Lord. Look what it looks like now.
This would be aisleway. This way we go to the cabaret room, and over here would be a Noble bar, and then in the main dining room. And of course the stairway right by the zebra room, there was a room up there.
Yes.
There was a group, a choral group of some sort, and 2 of those folks died. The rest of them got out.
They did get out, some got out.
Yeah, they got out.
All units hold traffic for 1350. Go 1350. This is 1350. Will you call the Covington squads? Get all available Covington squads.
Let's go back now to our Edge truck on the scene and see if we can get any more information from Beverly Hills.
Thank you very much, Bill. Joanne, you were here in the earlier part of the fire. Can you give us a little update as to what they think happened and so forth?
Well, they're not absolutely sure, Kyle, but from what I talked to a victim behind the building, and the lady told me that she was in the party room. She said they noticed that a cigarette had been left burning. It began smoking, and people evidently opened the door. The door let the wind in, it fanned the flames, and then spread. That is an unconfirmed report, but that's what I've gotten from at least 2 people who were in the room, and 1 busboy.
Quite honestly, the whole hill was on fire. That's what it looked like, a burning mountaintop. So we got the gear and we just walked. We walked up the hill. I had firemen collapsing in front of me. We made it to the top of the hill. The first person I talked to was a police officer who was standing by a walkway that just before you get to the building, there's a walkway to go around to the back. And he stopped me, and I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Lady, you don't want to go back there."
The coroner been notified? Negative, not as yet. We'll notify. Temper.
We're talking with Eugene Barber, a minister here. What have you been doing tonight, sir?
Howard, I came to try to find my services with whoever might be found alive that I could pray with. But in my 2 hours here, I've only found 1 person, and the rest of the people's bodies, of course, were lifeless. And as I told you earlier, I sort of feel my own helplessness as a human being, but at the same time, as a minister, I wanted to be here to be of any help I could be, and my thoughts go out and my prayers go up for the families of these people who do not yet know about their loved ones.
I could not reconcile what I was seeing with reality, but I knew it was real. As I have said, I lost an aunt in that fire. I was the one when my uncle called from Ashland, Kentucky, where she had lived, to tell me that she was there and they had no word from her. My uncle told me that, so I went looking. And of course, the bodies were on the Army floor at Fort Thomas, and they covered with sheets. And for some reason, God knows, I don't, I looked down and I saw something that reminded me of my aunt. And I said to the person who was there observing, I said, please pull that sheet back. The woman did, and there was my aunt's face. All I could see in way of burn was on her cheek, right there. She looked like she was simply asleep.
Dead bodies, they were all around you. Did that bother you then and now?
Looked unreal. They were all stacked neatly, and looked down, I says, these people could get up and go right back in that club and have a drink. All night I was awake the other night just thinking, what could we have done? And I've always been, had the idea that if you could have done it, you would have done it already. You have to look at history. Any big fire causes change. You know, we never had sprinkler systems till we had a big fire. We never had smoke detectors. Beverly Hills brought smoke detectors right down to the upfront. And nobody had smoke detectors hardly at all at that time, one or two occasional ones. Now everybody's got them and they have to have them in their house. Nobody's prepared for it. You can only do what you can do, period.
John Bache was a lieutenant for the Southgate Fire Department on the night of the fire on the hilltop. After all of these years, Bache remains on the department and is now the fire chief.
As we started up the driveway, I looked and I saw black smoke coming out of the eaves the length of the building, and I realized that we had a major fire. I turned around and started telling the guys on the back of the truck, and in those days you rode on the back of the truck, that we were going to lay dual feed lines. We had 2.5-inch supply lines, and if we had a small fire, we laid a single line, and if we had a big fire, we laid duals. So I was telling them to lay duals.
The driveway is blocked. Please advise the police at the bottom of the hill not to let anyone up the road. Please advise anyone not to come up the road.
When we got to the top, I turned around, and my first thought, I looked and I saw a bunch of people in the parking lot, and I thought, thank goodness everybody's out of the building, not having any concept of how many people were actually in there at the time of the fire. You told me to go to the rear. I went, there was a door at the side of the building which faced 27. It was a small single door with a few steps that led up to it, and there were firefighters there going in, bringing people out, going in, bringing people out. It looked like there were enough people there, so I went to the rear of the building, went in the double doors into the cabaret room, and that was when I found where the majority of people were. One group of firefighters would pull the people off the pile. They would bring them to the place where we could go, those of us who didn't have air packs on. We would drag the person to the doorway, and there were a line of people, club employees, patrons, a few firefighters, but mostly civilians who were waiting at the door. I looked at a couple people. There were people who were still breathing, who were alive, and I told people who were with them to keep their head turned and that type of thing. And then I found an air pack, and I put an SCBA on, and I went back in, and by then the initial group of rescuers were wore out. So I went in with a group of people that took their place, and we started going in, finding bodies and bringing those bodies out. I was wearing an air pack, but the heat was intense, and the heat really wore you out very quickly. I remember the firefighter saying, "He's going down, grab him," and the next thing I knew, I was laying in the chapel with my pack off. One of the things I remember was when I had gone in and initially, and the people were calling for help, and the guys were in there trying to get him out, and we needed lights. I ran to the front and I talked to the engineer, and on my way back I remember thinking to myself, this is really bad. I'm liable to die in here. And for a split second you think, do I really want to do this? And then it's like, that's what I'm here for, so that's what I got to do, and I continued on.
1350 to county. Do you read me, please? Go ahead. Set notify all men in and around the building of an imminent structural collapse on the southeast corner. Attention, all units with walkie-talkies. The inner unit is about ready to collapse. Clear the building. Clear the building.
Can I get in? The top of the hill is now being evacuated. I'm going to try to stay up here, but I don't know how soon they'll run me out.
When the ceiling collapsed, you still had men on the roof, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I was at the command post when that announcement came over the radio and everybody's truck, horns and everything. I had 16 firefighters inside the cabaret room with 4 fighting lines, and I had 7 people on the roof. Now, when that information came out, it's gonna crash the roof, get everybody out, we did. All 16 guys got out, left the hoses there, and just got out.
Moving over to the area where the hosers are fighting the flares. The fire is still going inside the building here. I don't see anybody bringing bodies out at this point. I know that's
most of them are cleared out now, and of course this area has suffered such severe flame that it's quite possible that it might be unrecoverable.
They
for a
can't
long
even
time.
get in. This is what the nurse was telling me earlier, that it's just a sheet of flame in here. You won't believe this. They have brought up a army truck, and they're taking the bodies and putting it on the truck now. There are 2 rows.
Howard's a little overcome. It's easy to be overcome. The bodies are laid out here, 2 rows of them, more on top of the hill. They've brought in a truck from the Army base over in Fort Thomas, and they're preparing to load the victims up and take them out. No one knows how many there may still be inside. No one even seems to know exactly how many have already been recovered. From the top of the hill with Howard Aim, this is Art Botterill.
165 supper club patrons perished because of the fire. Many died of smoke inhalation. This map of the supper club shows where firefighters found the dead on the night of the fire and the next day. 88 people were found in the cabaret room. Another 68 died near the cabaret room. 2 bodies were found near the zebra room, and 7 patrons survived the fire, but died later in the hospital.
I went to the armory as a volunteer, and while I was doing that, Dr. William Grau, Bill Grau, who was the oral surgeon in our neighborhood, he was part of this disaster team. He saw me, he knew I was a dental student, and he said, "Hey, Dr. Grady, come over here." So he gowned me up, I put my scrubs on and my mask, and I had gloves, and then my job from there on, for the rest of the time I was there, was to chart the mouths of the victims, the fire victims. Obviously, I'm a freshman out of dental school. Other than we had a cadaver at school, I didn't work with any dead people. And so I was kind of caught off guard. I'd unzip the body bag, and I would look, and the first few, I was pretty shocked at what I was looking at. I can say by the time I was finished that day, that night, and the next morning, I had done so many of them, and it didn't bother me as much at the end. I was afraid I was going to come across somebody I knew or my parents, and I'm going to tell you, besides praying I could do that job, I kept praying I don't come across anybody I know. So I'd say every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, I was going from one to the next, and I could not believe that they just kept setting those stretchers down, the road just got longer and longer and longer. I couldn't believe how many people were in there. I still pray for the people that had helped up there, the firemen and that, because I know they saw terrible things. The survivors of the victims and the people that did all the work, the first responders, saw a lot and did a lot. And most people don't understand how gruesome and what they had to do that night.
County, I hate to run the county short of ambulances, but I need oxygen up here. I got 100 people in that building. I can't get them out. Let's get 408 down here with oxygen.
I looked down, I saw a horrible sight. I saw a young woman, dead, laying there, just sprawled out. And I knelt down by her, and I said, "You're such a pretty girl, and you're dead." And I picked her up from her shoulders, and her head went way back. And I wanted to kiss her, just on the cheek, you know. I said, "No, I dare not. There's probably one of them newsmen around here that will get a picture of it." So I didn't do that. But I remember that. I really should have got her name and went to her funeral, but I didn't do it. I didn't do it. That really struck me. There was a whole bunch of people now. She was just one of many. But I don't know, that's a hard thing to see.
There was one, it was a girl, it was a young girl, and I could see her silver shoe that she had put on, her high heel shoe, and I was thinking of what was going through her mind when she was getting ready to go to Beverly Hills for a big, beautiful night with her family or a boyfriend, whoever it was. Mm-hmm. And when I looked at that shoe, and I started to cry. So I know exactly how you felt about that. Just saluting that beautiful young girl, cut down in the middle.
And life is over.
I just talked to John Davidson. He's worried about his conductor. I have no idea about that. All I can tell you is that I know there's about probably at least 35 to 40 people who are dead. If there's more people inside, I don't know.
The big entertainer on the night of the Beverly Hills Supper Club tragedy was singer John Davidson. He was expected to appear on stage, but when the fire erupted, he fled through the back door. His then music director, Douglas Hero, died. Davidson was not injured and participated in a charity concert for the families of the fire victims. Here is what he told us in November 2019. "You can please tell them, if you would, that I'm sorry, but I have always taken the position that I am so fortunate to have been a survivor of the fire, and in tribute to all those who lost loved ones, I have no desire to advance my career by getting television exposure for such an interview. But I wish you all the best for the show, and I'm glad you're giving attention to this incredibly sorrowful event."
That was talking to one of your kids, you know, he was a kid then. Yeah. And I started asking a couple of questions, and he was crying, and he had no idea he was crying. He didn't have any idea who I was or what I was doing there. And all he kept saying, I was telling you this, he kept saying, he looked up at me and was asking me a question, and he said, his face was all smudged and everything, he was crying, and he said that she was pregnant. Is that 1 or 2? It just stopped me. I remember, I wake up at night hearing that phrase, you know.
Well, it was a lot of emotion for the firefighters. The thing is, this wasn't a city like Cincinnati, New York, Miami, Chicago. This was a small town, Southgate, bedroom community. And this fire, the largest ever in the state of Kentucky, third largest of its type in the country, happened in that little bedroom community. So none of us, including me, I was the chief, the top ranking officer, and all the people under me, never saw this before.
This someday will be merely
a report on paper and something for arson investigators and coroner's examiners to probe for years and years to come. But tonight, it's a very tragic and a very heart-rending experience.
I was walking to the command post from wherever, I don't know, and this single woman, by single, I mean she was all alone, and she came up to me and she said, "Who's in charge of this thing?" I said, "Well, I am, ma'am. What's your problem?" She says, "I'm hunting for my husband and I can't find him." She was hysterical. She said, "He's got a pinstripe blue suit on, white shirt, a tie, and brown shoes." And I thought, "Lady, you just gave me the description of about 1,000 men." Didn't say that, of course. And she said, one of your firefighters took me in the back and we looked at bodies. He wasn't back there. I had just come from the morgue and he wasn't there. And I can't find him. And I didn't have the guts to tell her he was probably dead. I couldn't do it. And I said, if we see that description, I will let you know. But right now, you have to get off the property. I'm sorry. And a state policeman escorted her down, and I never saw her again. But Nick, I never had the guts, the courage to tell her that. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So things like that.
It's a very important thing to remember, but it's a very hard thing to remember. Very hard to, and I don't want to do it anymore.
At this point, Nick Clooney has arrived on the scene. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, Howard, I don't know whether this is new information. You may well have already passed this on, but I, of course, was on the scene a few moments ago talking to Chief Riesenberg, who informed me, and there was a new piece of information to me, that Beverly Hills is not equipped with sprinkler system.
I remember Nick asking me to summarize, and I can't for the life of me tell you what I said, because that was the biggest thing I had ever done. And quite honestly, a lot of it is blank because of the magnitude of what happened.
Nobody ever covered anything like this, which turned out to be the second worst fire in U.S. history.
That path will take us right back.
This thing cost you a lot. You lost a marriage to it, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
And I imagine everyone up here lost a little something to Beverly Hills.
Probably gonna be my last time up here.
It's exactly what I was thinking myself. I won't be coming back here. This is it.